Good afternoon, everyone. I see some faces. Welcome this evening to the last session of our Zoom series on an entrepreneurial mindset in times of change. This is organized by the University of Aruba and hosted by the Center for Lifelong Learning. And if you might be wondering who I am, my name is Deborah Alexander, and I am the coordinator for this beautiful center, Center for Lifelong Learning. It is today, July 6th, and the last topic for this series is titled Sense or Nonsense in Finance. Discover the fundamentals of pragmatic financial planning for your business. I believe that many of you who have registered are have indicated that you're either in the startup phase of your business or you haven't started as yet. And this is a very important part of your business, because if not, I think the future of your business will be limited to just what it is right now. But before we start, I'd like to draw your attention to the next. Your microphones are muted, so you cannot speak in between. I said, don't be shy. Please keep your cameras on. That way we can see you, feed off of your energy as well. Questions can be provided via the chat box. I would like to say, once you have your questions, please indicate to who it's directed, which one of our speakers. You speaker view in viewing this Zoom meeting. Have patience with the internet. Maybe my technology, maybe your technology. Don't get frustrated, just have patience with it. At the end, feel free to contact us and give us your feedback. It is highly appreciated. And you can see this session is being recorded and will be made available at a later date on our website or either via our mailing list. So who is going to talk about sense or nonsense in finance? We first of all have Oliver Vieira. He's branch manager of credits. We have Don Taylor, who is a lecturer and has his own financial consulting company. And as lads, there's Bouke Veenstra, who's also consulting, but most important, also one of my colleagues here at the University of Aruba. I would also like to highlight this presentation is not meant to be a formal presentation. It's meant to be a bit of a teaser, a bit of touching the surface for our summer schools, for which the program will be made, the dates will be made known at a later date. It's meant to be informal, so they're not lecturing to you, but use this presentation as an opportunity to find out all that you would like to know about finance, what makes sense and what doesn't make sense. So without further ado, I'd like to give the word to Oliver Vieira.
Bon tarde, everybody. Just as I was transferring, the screen froze, but I'm back online, I think. My name is Oliver Vieira, and I'm the branch manager of Credits Microfinanciering Aruba. And today, I have the good luck in being one of the presenters together with Donald Taylor and Bouke Veenstra to discuss sense and nonsense of finance. Credits Microfinance Aruba, for the ones who do not know, is an initiative which started a few years ago, and our purpose is to finance businesses. I'll go into a little bit more detail regarding what specifically we do, but as part of my introduction, I want to get that out there because that's the why it's relevant for this conversation. Our practical experience has taught us a lot with regards to doing business in Aruba. And since our initial operations where we started off focusing significantly on new business, in the last year or two, we've been focusing on existing businesses as well. So we think we can contribute in a positive way to the presentations of sense and nonsense in finance. Our office is located in downtown, so we have plenty of businesses nearby, and we see the challenges and opportunities which are arising due to the COVID-19 pandemic. And I think from my perspective, this is a really good conversation to have, because I think there's a lot of people reevaluating their needs and their wants and their wishes for the future. So I think this is a timely conversation. It's the idea is to have to spark some interest in this area of entrepreneurship or business management. Hopefully enticing future entrepreneurs or existing entrepreneurs to take the next step and upgrade their knowledge and use that to pave the way for the new future of Aruba. So with that introduction, we can go to the next slide. What is Credit's mission statement? As explained before, Credit's mission statement is actually to supply financing for businesses who don't traditionally find financing opportunities at local banking institutions. And this is where we make the difference because we are able to offer that. What makes it interesting for the case for Aruba is that primarily finance is dominated by the banks. And it was only up until we introduced ourselves to the market that actually a new player was in town to do these types of activities. What you do see is, and how this is relevant to the presentation today, is not only what Credits does, but in actually how do we do what we do. One of the main areas of focus for obtaining financing at Credits or an institution such as ours is the availability or the ability to make your own business plan. So I'll be discussing this in more details in my next few slides. But there's a lot of importance in drawing a good business plan because as part of a good business plan, you need a good financial plan. And Donald will be explaining more the details regarding the finance part of it. I'll be explaining more the concept as to why it's relevant, why it's important, why we have to do it in a certain way. And we can go to the next slide. Again, to highlight what we do, it's not only about obtaining financing, because being able to make finance decision doesn't always mean obtaining financing, but it just means proper management and maybe finding financing at some other areas, which doesn't have to be an institution. In any case, our focus is, of course, we do the lending side of it, but mentoring and coaching is something that is what we call in Dutch our speerpunten. It's activities that we focus significantly on in order to build up better businesses, entrepreneurs, to help a larger critical mass of individuals who can be able to manage their businesses at a better level. So education plays a huge role. And education is something that it's also a theme that's going to come up throughout my presentation, as in why it's so important. In short, for many years, for many decades, it's been the limitations for businesses to obtain financing. And usually the question that it asks is from both sides. What are the limitations to obtain financing? Well, the one side is it's not available. And the other side of the equation is, well, people might not be educated sufficiently to obtain financing. Now, that's not to say that everybody needs an MBA or some type of advanced degree to request financing, but a better understanding of how you deal with financing does intend to improve the chances of obtaining financing. So this is something that's really important to know and to have a good grip on as to what are the intricacies of when you're discussing finance or financing problems or any questions related to finance. And we can go to the next slide. So after a pretty long introduction regarding finance, what I wanted to focus on today is actually, and I think a lot of people might have these types of questions, is what do we do now? I mean, the COVID-19 pandemic was not foreseen. Nobody expected it. Nobody had their planning for the rest of the year, assuming that the tourism borders would be closed down and tourism would drop all the way down to zero. And of course, while many companies are directly dependent on tourism, there's a large pool of companies who is also indirectly dependent on tourism. So there are questions that we would like to answer during this presentation or this discussion. Some of them we might have more clear answers than not. But the idea is to have a conversation regarding them and try to illuminate that road a bit further. So the questions that I receive a lot during the last few weeks or months have been, what are the challenges of the current situation? The challenges are obvious. We have no tourism, therefore there's many other industries are also stagnated because there's a chink in the flow of money on the island. What types of businesses are being financed? Well, it's more of a question on the need to finance than the type of businesses. A lot of people ask me, so what would you want to finance now? So it depends mostly on the situation, and that's something that we have to contextualize today in the presentation. What should I do as an existing business? That depends again on the situation, on your situation, personal situation, professional situation. What is your current finance situation? There are many dynamics, and hopefully we can answer a few questions regarding that today. And what have we noticed about financial matters during the COVID-19? There's a lot of things that came to light with regards to financial matters. One of the big areas which has received a lot of attention is actually the public side of financing and what the implications are for what Aruba can do. But there's also a local question and also a more micro question to be asked regarding the different businesses, being large, small business, or medium-sized. It's the same type of questions that are being asked overall. And how the solution is found, though, depends on the situation of the business. And what are the advantages or opportunities for entrepreneurs can take advantage of during these times? It is typically a very, I would say, many business owners are concerned. They're not sure on what to do. But even during times of depression or with significant downward movement on economic activity, there are still opportunities to be exploited out there. And this is true also for Aruba, and this is also true for the time, for these times. Personally, we have had businesses being quite successful during this pandemic. So it has shown that there are opportunities out there, and there are ways to make something out of nothing, as they say. So these are the types of questions. Maybe some look familiar to you, and I think we'll hold off for the questions till the end of the presentation, or at least when I finish my part, and then we can go into details more at the end regarding the specific questions that you might have. Let me go to the next slide. So in general, though, what we have noticed is that there is some questions regarding the current state of entrepreneurship on Aruba. And there are questions on the finance side, on management side, on every side. And today we'll be discussing mostly the finance side. One of the observations that we've made over the last few years is the fact that we resolved the questions regarding the possibility to obtain financing. Basically, if you come up with a good business plan of credits, we should find a way to finance you. It might not be what you requested, like maybe you requested 100,000 florins, maybe we can do less. But nonetheless, we do propose the incentive to do the financing. So there is opportunity. But what we've noticed is that on the other side, there's a pretty significant lack of education regarding financing and how to obtain financing and how to prepare a business plan and what do all these terms actually mean with regards to when you present these plans to us. And of course, there are right now big issues regarding business taxation because the government was basically with a restructuring of the financing, the taxation structures on Aruba, but that has been delayed. And now, of course, going forward, assuming all the debt that Aruba has to take on to maintain the island afloat, there are probably going to be some impacts with regards to taxation in the future. They might be positive, they might be higher, lower. We don't know yet. Nobody knows, except for the decision makers maybe. But all in all, these two areas, with regards to financing, entrepreneurship, business taxation, how these things relate. In general, we do notice that there's a lot of information to be shared. One of the problems is the fact that information doesn't tend to be really accessible. On my side, I can tell you regarding my experience that I get a lot of people coming in asking us for feedback and advice on these different areas, which are not specifically our areas of expertise, but we do tend to know quite a bit regarding it. And we do refer them to professionals once we get to a point where, it's really out of our court. But in essence, we do try to help as much as possible and give the right information to our clients, because we understand that a better informed client, a better informed entrepreneur can make better decisions. Now, maybe not all of them end up financing with us, but in general, if we are able to help entrepreneurship in general, then we're helping our cause as well. So we see this as a win-win situation. We see as collaboration as something really important for us and local businesses. And I think that's an area of emphasis that Aruba needs to get better on. So if we go to the next slide, if we talk about what are the things that credits focuses on, or what if you're going to be starting a new business, or even if you have an existing business and need to reinvent yourself in some way after the COVID pandemic. And I am speaking in the sense that eventually we will get past it. So we have to think about the future, because right now we're still quite in it, but all the indications are positive in any case. One of the areas which we see a lot of businesses struggling with is their unique selling position. This is an area which we find to be really important, because a business with a strong, unique selling position is better able to position itself in the market, and therefore better able to request better pricing from their clients, not for their clients, but from their clients. So clients will be paying them more value for their products, and still be able to sell sufficient products or grow in that situation. The more you differentiate yourself in the market, the better off you'll be. What we tend to see in Aruba is you tend to see a lot of, I wouldn't say copy-paste type of businesses, but they seem to follow a certain trend. And usually they have an idea to be different, but because of uncertainty and lack of preparedness, they tend to fall in line with whatever's out there. So we do our best to give proper advice, to stimulate our clients to, work on unique selling position. And when you start, try to remain as loyal as possible to your unique selling position, because this will be actually the driver of your income in the future. Simply because the stronger your position is, the higher the price you will be able to ask from the market. The market will be willing to pay a higher price for your goods, and you'll be able to make better profits, better margins. So it sounds quite logical. It sounds actually, if I explain it like that, it sounds really easy, but it's something really difficult to do, because there's a lot of market forces pushing companies to make rash decisions all the time. But as long as you have a good business plan, as long as even if you have an existing or a new business, and you have a focus on what you're doing and what you're contributing to the market, then it shouldn't be an issue as to if you're going to be changing or adapting your unique selling position. It's more of a question of, okay, how can you even further be more specific regarding your unique selling position, and be able to actually push your product forwards and ask for higher margins or profitability in the future. Once you build your brand, then you're very solid, because you have a strong brand, a unique selling position. And even if you do tend to get that copy-paste type of business, which might start competing with you, they will never be able to replace your brand in the back, because as I say to many of my clients, nobody can be you better than you. So it's quite simple, but there's a lot of effort that needs to be put behind the unique selling position. But keep in mind, this is a very important element, and this is a driver of what your profitability will be dependent on in the future. So if we can go to the next slide, this is a representation of how typically a business plan looks like in somebody's head. They have all these types of ideas they want to work out, and they can't quite put it onto a document. Usually they have probably 2 or 3 different unique selling positions. And then we have to go through the conversation about, okay, so how unique can you be? And how many products can you be unique? And please bear in mind that a unique selling position is not having the best price. That's a market-driven outcome. That's not you having a unique selling position. So the business plan usually looks like this in somebody's head, and we try to go through the process of filtering this out and making it more transparent for our clients. And we tend to try to put this in a profile where it becomes somewhat predictable, or that somebody else can read the document and understand what's going on. So in my next slide, that's the breakdown of how a business plan should look like. So we have all these ideas, all these things that come together. And, if we're talking about sense and nonsense, we have so much nonsense in our head that we need to try to focus that and make it sensible on a piece of paper. Now, it doesn't have to be 30 pages. It doesn't have to be 50 pages or anything like that. A well drawn out business plan might take a few pages indeed, but as long as you have a format, and this is just an example of our products that we use, we have an e-learning which helps you develop the business plan. But you can find many of these templates online, and you can actually try to follow them. I would just recommend you following a template of good quality. And I believe that ours is a really good one. So the information of us is available on our website, and you can get this anytime. But try to follow an order. And maybe sometimes you start off with a table of contents and you fill that out, and then you start putting your ideas one after each other. And that starts building your business. And that starts making it, what we try to do with the business plan is you want to be thinking about the business being an existing thing than a future thing. And that helps you a lot with making decisions right now regarding your future business that you might be encountered with in the future. So the better you prepare yourself, and the more prepared you are, the more likely you are to make better decisions in the future. So this is the part where we put a lot of emphasis in our, if you would call it, our education side of our program. And we tend to see that this helps out a lot of businesses. Even if something happens like you build the business plan before the pandemic, of course, everything changes. But you know specifically where you need to make the changes. You don't have to reinvent the wheel. You just have to adjust your wheel and make it better, adapt for the times, and go forward with it. So it helps you out a lot. It's an investment in time, but it helps you out quite a bit. So if we can go to the next slide, our business plan also entices the part of the financing and the financial part, which Don will actually be expanding more upon quite soon. The financial part that we present in our business plan is that we start off with a budget. It's very difficult to have an idea of what the business will need if you don't start with a budget. And you can build your budget on a piece of napkin, you can build it in our sheets, but start doing it. Make it clear for yourself. And this doesn't have to be for a new business. This can only, but it can be for an existing business. The pandemic hit. Right now, it's time to reorganize, prioritize, and build your budget, build your plan. There's still a plan to be made for the next 6 months. There's still a plan to be made for the next 1.5 to 2 years. There's a long recovery road in front of us, and businesses need to adapt to that. If they don't, then they might suffer for longer than they have to. So right now, it's the time to be smart. So you can build up your SMART goals in your business plan and budget and have your plan. And you can see the more accurate you are in building your budget, the chances are the more successful your business is going to be. So that's what I'll discuss regarding specific financing elements, I'll leave the rest of the financing to Don. Lastly, and before I finalize this part of the presentation, please, when you do prepare your business plan, when you do prepare your budget, or when you try to go for financing, even if you come through us, through the bank, through a third party, through an angel investor, whoever it might be prepared, because it only helps you to be professional with your own business. The more prepared you are, the more you do your homework, you think about your USP, you think about how you're going to execute it, and you think about all these elements that we've discussed today, you'll be able to present a pitch which will be far more efficient and will actually lead you to obtain at least part of the financing or the whole financing that you requested. So that kind of brings my points back to where we started. Okay, so financing is available for the most part, but what we need to resolve, or what people need to work on in the future, is to be prepared. Nobody was prepared for the COVID-19 pandemic, but now it's happened. Now all the repercussions have matured, but now's the time to plan of action and go forward. And you can only do that by being well prepared, thinking about your business, thinking about what you want to do, and develop that going forward. Thank you.
Okay, thank you all for passing it on to me. My name is Don Taylor. It's a pleasure and an honor and a privilege to be with you today. And I'd like to discuss how to arrange financing for startups. And so making sense of financing, and also introducing you to what not to do in terms of raising capital. Now, let's go on to the next slide and continue. Now, when you start a company, what we've done here in this slide, we sort of put out all of the financing options that are available to companies or to businesses that have a business. So as you notice on the slide, you see as the age of the company matures, the type and sophistication of capital becomes much more complex. And so what we're primarily concerned with at this stage in this lecture or in this presentation is to talk about founders, friends and family, angel investing, angel funds, but we'll not get into venture capital, public markets or private equity because that is beyond the scope of this presentation. Next slide, please. So in terms of growth of finance, we look at individual efforts, family and friends, low angel investors. This is what we call the bootstrapping stage, where you're trying to raise yourself by your own bootstrap. You're trying to finance your company or your business by seeking capital or finance from where you can get it in order to just get started, in order to have the business going. And we stop at the seed stage where there's teamwork, valuation, accelerators, and committed. That will not be the year that we'll focus on. But you can see that it is the bootstrapping stage is just one stage in the process. And it's a long process because once you have a business, you may constantly need to seek capital as the business grows. Next slide, please. So what are the financials? So to contextualize then, now that you've seen those two slides, we're contextualizing into Aruba. So what are the financing sources in Aruba? We have bank financing, angel financing, partner financing, revenue-based financing, and credits. Now, I've brought a lot of business plans to market, as it were, in terms of getting financing for them through my firm. And I can tell you, all options are looked at. And we're going to start with bank financing first and explain to you some of the intricacies in bank financing, some of the things that you need to be prepared to have ready if you are seeking bank financing. Next slide, please. So bank financing is substantially where most people seek to get their capital to start their business. But what I'm saying is that is not the first place you should look, because there are some challenges with that. You need to have a compelling business idea, first of all. You need to have a first mover advantage. if you have first mover advantage in an area, and as Oliver points out, there's a lot of copy-paste business. You have a first mover advantage. You need to find a way to protect, or what you call in business lexicon, ring fence that first mover advantage, so other people cannot copy you, because they will, because it's a small economy, and people will find a way to come up with the same ideas that you have. You look at real estate, you look at any business that you see, people copy the business. So first mover advantage is good, but you need to find a way, as Oliver points out, to have a unique selling point that makes it unique, that other people cannot copy. Something unique to Aruba, a compelling business model that is that's nobody else can copy, a significant competitive advantage, and blue or red ocean strategy. By that, which is more a take on the SWOT analysis, which is much more sophisticated, in the sense that a blue ocean strategy means that you are going to invest, you're going to seek to invest in businesses that no one else has thought of. While a red ocean strategy is where everybody's already in the game, and you need to find a unique position in that game. Such as you take real estate, thousands, hundreds of a lot of real estate companies in Aruba. So if you set up your own real estate company, you have to have a unique advantage. But if you say do something in real estate that's not in Aruba, then you can have a unique strategy there. You must have, as pointed out, financial rationale and projections. So you should have it based. You should not present to the bank a business plan or any presentation without a financial rationale and future projections going up to at least 3 to 5 years. Projected cash flow, and most important of all, your repayment capacity. How are you going to pay back the loan that you're going to seek to start up? And because of that, most banks will require security. You need to have a borrowing capacity, and for that they may require your house, your property, or other assets. Also will require some sort of track record to prove that the idea makes sense and it can work, that there is a real revenue behind the idea, that it does generate revenue, that they can see and that you have documented. Next slide, please. So within the Aruban context then, you need to build a track record of your business before going to the bank. I've seen many business people come to me and ask me to go to the bank, and they're not what we call bank ready. They're not ready to go to the bank. And so we have to tell them to go get yourself organized before you can come to the bank. So banks generally do not finance startups. Okay, they don't need to finance startups. They're looking for solid investments in which their risks are low. They will require security, and we advise you not to put your house or property as security that you cannot afford to lose. I've seen people have put their house up as security, and they were sweating when the bank came after their house because they had no other place to live. So do not put your house or property that you cannot afford to lose as security for any business loan. Banks need financial statements and will check with you if your taxes are up to date. So you need to find someone who can prepare your financial statements before you go to the bank, because they'll need a history to see whether or not the idea makes some sense. Banks will also check with each other if you have a good track record. So there are only a small number of banks on the island. So if you say leave Aruba Bank to go to CNB or so, they will check with each other to see if you are a good client, because they don't necessarily need your business. Next slide, please. As I said, banks do not need your business. They're quite profitable. So you have to convince them that you can minimize their risk in order for them to lend you funds. Now, why I say banks are quite profitable? According to the IMF report, they were the most profitable institutions in Aruba for several years, and they continue to be the most profitable set of institutions in Aruba. Their return on investment is quite high. So what you should try and do is to work with banks with whom you can build a good relationship. So find a bank who you think you have a good relationship with, a bank manager or person in that bank who you think you have a good relationship and who you can relate to, and then work with that bank. Because it depends on the relationship you have, that you can then approach the bank, and then they will look on your idea in a favorable light. There's no guarantee, of course, but the fact that you have a relationship opens doors for you. Note also that banks are subsidiaries. Most banks are subsidiaries or affiliates of large banks based outside Aruba. So their decisions are influenced by the loan standards of those banks. So there is only one bank here that does not have that sort of strong affiliation, overseas affiliation, that determines that their decisions and their lending standards. Most of the other banks do. And so even if they are approved here, or if you have a good relationship with someone here, if they have their lending standards that are international, it could be a challenge. It does not mean that your loan will be approved. Next slide, please. The next set of investors are what you call angel investors. Now, angel investors are typically individuals who invest in startup or stage companies, startup companies or early stage companies in exchange for equity ownership interest. So angel investing in startups has been accelerating, and there have been high profile success stories like Uber, WhatsApp, Facebook, but these are in the States. And the typical investors normally raise between 25 to 100,000 per company, but they can go higher in those countries. Next slide, please. So let's relate it to the Aruban context then. And again, this is based on experience and what I've seen and what I've actually been involved in. In Aruba, this is what you call friends and family investing. It is very rare. It does not often happen. And only a few individuals or families can be angel investors. And so those are probably well known on the island, and they have their friends and their families or people that are connected to them that may be able to help you. It depends also on the relationship you have with them. If you have deep relationship, you will be able to try and bring those people into your investment idea. It should be someone who can lose that investment and do not lose sleep over it. So in one particular case, we had an angel investor that invested over 400,000 in a startup, and more money was needed, and they lost that money. But there was no real sweat over it. It was not a situation where they hated each other or so. So they did not lose sleep over it. But maybe that may not have been a big deal to that person, but to someone else, even 20,000 could be a big deal. So you need to find the right person who can relate to and who's willing to invest and who does not need to be on your back about the money and where it's going and what it is being used for. And also, quite importantly, the source of funds must not be dubious. In other words, it must be a legitimate source of funds. And we'll come to what the don'ts of finance, and we'll talk about that a little more. This requires, the other one is, Sam investing, Sam partner investing. No, this is often not seen as a capital source, but it takes place here among some people. This requires great discipline and is used as an informal financing network in developing countries and here as well. So each person in the group contributes a fixed monthly, some say 1,000 or 2,000. I've heard of people going as high as 5,000 per month. Of course, that's at the extreme. And it requires a tremendous amount of discipline, hard work, and sacrifice to put off the spending. But because of the group dynamics, that discipline comes somewhat naturally. And so it is sort of forced savings. And so with that, over a period of time, one is able to accumulate a lot of capital to make an investment in a business. Next slide, please. The other one is revenue-based financing, which is a fixed sum that is repaid based on the income and revenue. So you can seek financing, seek a source of finance or someone to financing or whoever is willing to finance you, as to say, all right, I'm going to start a business, and for every dollar I make or for every florin I make, I'm going to give you 20 cents out of it. Okay, so that is not tied to the equity. You do not need to give that person a piece of the pie, a piece of the company or the business that you have, because they will be getting money on every sale that you make to repay a portion of a percentage of that loan. So a startup may receive a loan of 100,000, pay 5 to 20% of every sale back to the investor until the amount is paid in full with a fixed fee on top. And there are no equity, personal guarantees, or hidden fees involved. That is somewhat very rare. It does not often happen, but it is out there for people who want to minimize their risk. And again, one of the reasons why you have angel investors and this sort of financing is because the banks are paying 2% on savings. So some people may have some money and may seek to get a higher rate of return elsewhere. So they have this sort of financing. So the possibility exists. Next slide, please. So this type of financing is a rocket fuel capital that gives qualifying founders immediate cash for growth, though needing for them to sacrifice ownership. And that's where that could be a challenge. Sacrificing ownership may mean that if someone makes that investment in your firm at a startup stage, they may want 50% of the company or the startup. You may not necessarily want to give them 50% of the startup because it's your idea and it is your sacrifice bringing the idea to fruition. So that could become somewhat of a challenge. So having someone lend you money rather than invest in your business may be the better option in order to keep all of the business for yourself and basically determine the direction the business should go, rather than giving them a piece of the action and then have disputes later on down the road if the business succeeds. Next slide, please. So the financing options we talk about is not free. So whether own financing or other financing, there's a cost associated with it. Again, as I pointed out, the banks are paying 2% on the money that people save or have not used. So angel financers have to consider, if I take that money out, I'm going to incur some risk and I may lose that money. So they will need to charge a certain percentage to cover that level of risk. And so normally it's 18 to 25% per year. I've actually seen people go as high, I ask for 33% per year, in fact. So they get their money back in 3 years, plus what you owe them. So that is something to consider. Own financing, even if you put your money in, or you save your own funds, or you take it from the bank that you have saved and put it in a business, you should consider that there's a cost attached to that as well, because you could put that money elsewhere. That's what we call the opportunity cost, and earn a risk-free rate of return. So there is risk involved. So once you take it out of the bank or take it from a safe place and put it in an unsafe place, which is a business, you need to consider the cost involved. And again, you need to account for that, and that could be between 20% to 25% per year. So interest rates at banks for loans are typically between 7 to 12%, depending on the risk levels. So if they like you, or they know you, or they know that you have enough assets, you probably can get a loan for 7%. But if you're unknown as a startup, then it could be higher because the risk is higher. The more security you have, collateral you have, could also impact that as well. So if you have a house, properties, or anything like that, they will also lower the risk. But just be aware So one thing about the borrowing capacity, property values that are presented, banks only consider the execution value and take a percentage of that, not the market value. So you have to consider that as well. That is not the market value that the banks are going to look at. It is the execution value of the property. Now, Q Credits has a good deal going on. They start off, and correct me if I'm wrong, Oliver, they start off at 2% for the first 2 years and then 6.75% after. I don't know if you want to comment on that, Oliver.
It's the first year, so 2% for the first year.
For the first, not the first 2 years. Okay, but then it goes up to 6.75% after. And that is a very competitive rate. And that's the best in the market, I think. The SAM is considered your own savings as well. So when you consider SAM, then you consider your own financing. The cost of other financing options can be negotiated, but will be higher than bank financing, as I said, because they're not necessarily secured. Angel financing is not secured. So they will ask for more money, more higher return, because there's a risk involved of loss. Next slide, please. Oh, and then move on to Oliver. Sorry.
Yes, so I think, thank you, Don, for that overview with regards to, because I think that helps out a lot of people in clarifying the options of financing and looking at what the different options might be for them. And different financing options match up with different businesses. So there's not one solution that works for everybody, but it usually is a combination of that makes it really happen. It's just some lenders might be more strict than others, and some might offer more options. In the case of what we do in our, and that's why I highlighted this page on our website. One of the important elements that we find and the approach that we have with regards to financing is actually building that relationship. Typically, financial institutions rely on the collateral side of the transaction, or the security, what Don mentioned earlier. What this means is they'll take, usually it means that they take a house or a property, a building, a commercial building, and then finance against that as the business. It's a leverage to obtain financing, but that's how banks tend to finance their clients. How we do it is we go more on the relationship side of it, and we're more into building better entrepreneurs, either being new or existing. And that's why we offer, that's why mentoring and business development and coaching and all these areas are actually areas that we focus quite a bit on. So if you're not that type of business owners which would like to do these types of activities, then it might be that you're not a client for credits, and that credits might not be a good fit for you, regardless of the interest rate. But if you are, then maybe you should be at a client A credits, because we will be taking the time to invest in your business, not only with financing, but simply by investing in information and commitment and giving proper advice for you to make better decisions. So we truly do believe, and our business model has shown that it's actually successful, that if you prepare business owners to make the right decisions and are able to help them make good decisions, the more likely they are to make better decisions and good decisions for the business in order for the business to grow. Now, the level of growth will differentiate from business to business, but nonetheless, you're still going forward. And it's only to the point where you've outgrown credits with regards to your financing needs. Then by that time, the expectation is that you have already built in the qualities needed to manage your business on your own, and you can go to a bank or go to a different financing option and then grow your business from there. And in general, we would have helped entrepreneurship. So we look towards that relationship. We actually notice a lot of clients actually like the fact of obtaining feedback, and obtaining feedback shouldn't be obtained only by us or provided by us, but should be provided by your network of friends and family as well, or people that you trust. So you can ask questions and clarify things, because a lot of business owners feel that they're all alone. So don't feel alone. just ask the right people the right questions, and you'll be able to get good quality feedback. This is an overview of our website, which shows what the application requirements are and the basic needs that we have normally for financing. What I wanted to highlight with this slide is when you go look at your financing options, for sure a do is to check the website, check the information, check for bad or negative reviews with regards to people, institutions, etc. Because you do want an institution that is reputable, that is actually doing what they're supposed to be doing, and they're not just trying to sell you off a product and enticing you to a deal which, if they don't inform you accordingly, you might have bigger repercussions. As Donald mentioned, some angel investors have expected or requests for interest rates up to 33%. So that's a specific type of investment that a business or idea that would go for. There is a room for that in the market, but it's just a specific one. And you have to find out for yourself which one is the one that's going to be the better fit for you. And that's why these conversations are really important. Next slide. I think, Donald, you can pick it up from here again. Donald, if you can unmute.
Yeah. Oh, wow. Okay, can you hear me now? Okay, can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay, so basically, we like to conclude. What I like to do is to go through what you should not do in seeking to finance your startup business. You should not seek money from loan sharks, payday lenders, and this again, this comes from experience in guiding businesses to get financing on Aruba, the years that I've spent here. So do not get money from loan sharks. Do not seek to get money from loan sharks or payday lenders, no matter how desperate you are for that startup capital. Do not go to pawn shops and pawn your jewelry or anything to start your business. That is not the way that it works, because in the end, you're taking a big risk and you could lose everything. The reason why you should not go to loan sharks or payday lenders, interest rate tends to be very, very high. That's the 33% or more, and it's not worth it. No business that I have seen provides you with that level of return to pay back a loan shark. Do not go to foreign investors with dubious source of funds, and there Oliver can probably relate a bit on that.
Yeah, what we've unfortunately what we've seen in the market is you have foreign investors that come up with a good propositions to either buy your business, buy part of your business, and usually it's a deal that sounds too good to be true. Hey, I have 100, 200,000 florins. I want to invest in your business, and I just want a minority stake, regardless of how your business is doing. And these are deals that tend to sound too good to be true, because they usually are. What happens is that these people try to funnel monies into the business, which come from illegitimate sources. So, and once you get involved with that type of things, it only ruins your reputation and your business, which will further limit the growth of any potential of the business might have. So try to avoid these at all costs.
Thanks, Oliver. The other one is local investors that have dubious sources of wealth. You have a couple of investors here, or reputed investors, that whose name has come up a lot of times when I'm seeking capital for some people. They ask, why don't I go to this person or that person? I said, no, because leading them, again, that will affect your reputation. If you're affiliated with them in any way, shape, or form, you cannot go to a bank or you cannot go to a reputable financial institution. So no matter how much money they have, try and avoid those people. And then you also see people who say they're brokers. They can get you financing for a fee. I've been to a couple of those myself, and they talk about, yeah, we can get you financing from the States. We have people lined up with excess cash, and all you need to do is pay me $2,000, and that will start the paperwork, and then they will decide how much money they will give you based on the paperwork without even presenting a business plan in some cases. Trying to avoid those people. Those people are scam artists. You should not go to them, because in the end, they will not, you're just wasting your money. So try to avoid those people at all costs. In fact, they probably should be reported to the authorities for scamming people. The other one is, the other thing I'd like to mention is, do not use credit card financing. There's a temptation to max out your credit card and to finance your startup. That does not make sense, because again, it comes back to the interest rate. You pay 18% or more on credit card financing. Very few businesses as a startup is going to give you that level of return. And the other thing, a business should be considered as a long-term proposition. It is something that you're going to keep for the long term, a long-term investment. You should not seek financing, short-term financing, which credit card financing is, which loan sharks are, which pawn shops are, short-term financing or long-term investments. You should try and match the investment with the financing. That makes it viable. If you do not do that, there are ample examples in Aruba I could mention in a private conversation where that has not occurred and it has ended up in bankruptcy for the company. So try and match your financing to the investment or time horizon that you have. Long-term investments, long-term financing. Finally, next slide, please. We advise, and I think Oliver and I agree with this, you should seek advice before financing from professional, reputable firms who want to see you succeed and who you can discuss your ideas confidentially with, and who may ask you some of the tough questions. They may ask you, do you have a business plan? Do you have things like a business model canvas? I recently have been asked to someone asked me to help them get quite a substantial amount of money, quite a substantial amount of money. I can't get into the amount. And when I looked at I looked at what they presented, the business model was weak. There was no basis on which you could ask for that sum of money that they were seeking without having a clear-cut business model. So that was a challenge. And so when you get professional advice, the advisor should ask you, what is your business model? How robust is your business model? Can it stand up to scrutiny? And ask you some tough questions that you need to ask yourself before you seek financing. Also seek professional guidance from firms that can help you with tax advice. So if you are going to make money, or if you see an opportunity, what are the tax implications? And what are the legal implications as well? And how do you set up your financing as well? So that when you go to present your business plan, you have all of these parties involved supporting you in making your business or your startup succeed. Thank you so much. This has been my presentation. And so if there are questions or answers, next slide, please. Please do not hesitate to let us know. I think the word now is to Balke to say a few words before we conclude.
Yes, thank you, Donald, and also Oliver for your eloquent presentations. Before we go over to the questions and answers and also the takeaways, Deborah asked me to give a few words about the importance of this series on entrepreneurial mindset in times of change. And as a co-organizer, I'm delighted to give you a few words. One of the reasons doing this is that it's one of UA's core tasks to serve the local community.
What we've observed in our portfolio is that we have a solid portfolio. Our portfolio came into the COVID-19 pandemic really strong. And so far, we've been able to manage it really well. And we believe that it has a lot to do with the way that somebody does its financing. So again, the more informed you are, the better prepared you are, the more options you put on your table, the better decisions, the most efficient decisions you'll be making for your business. And that helps out a lot, because in times of need, such as the COVID-19 pandemic, it's just, there's no way to know beforehand how it's going to impact each individual business. But being prepared, much like Aruba was supposed to be prepared before something happens to tourism, and much like we're going to have to work on the future to have more economic pillars, maybe not as lucrative, but still pillars, that will help us be more resilient in the future. And we start off by building that into local businesses. And once we have that into local businesses, we believe that automatically that'll have a...
Would you say that the more also successful entrepreneurs have an entrepreneurial background in their family? Maybe Donald, you can say something about that. I'm just curious, because in your presentation, you really put me to think. And I was saying, you know, is it necessarily that it comes from the environment you're in as well, in terms of understanding finance? You've been brought up hearing these conversations, following them. Is a successful entrepreneur, I mean, as you said, Oliver, there's no data. I don't know if Don knows a bit more, but do you see that people who become better and successful entrepreneurs have had, you know, been for years being in that environment of entrepreneurship? Donald, I think you have to unmute, yeah.
Yeah, sorry about that. I agree with the figures that Oliver has. On average, about 50% of businesses fail at the startup stage. What is interesting is that even after the startup stage, businesses continue to fail. And so that could also be as much as 50 to 75% of new businesses that fail. And a part of that reason for failure, and this is borne out by research, and part of that reason for failure is the lack of attention to finance, or lack of competitive advantage, or no compelling reason for customers. So it is a high failure rate in business. So being a business is not easy. Answering your question though, part of the fundamental challenge that we have is culture. There needs to be a culture of startups. There needs to be a culture of business. And we talked about how the law relates to that as well. So the law impacts that. If the law puts obstacles in the ways to start a business, it's going to impact how many businesses are started and so on. So that also impacts the amount of business that gets started. So both a culture, so if you go to, say, Hong Kong or Singapore or any of these successful countries, Asian tigers as well, startup is in their culture. Everybody's trying to work for themselves. Very few of them try to seek a job that is comfortable and so on. So that is something fundamental. So what we need to do is to change the culture. Just as we change the culture towards tourism and hospitality, we need to change the culture towards entrepreneurship and encourage entrepreneurship from young ages, to get people when they're adults to not consider it a big risk to start a business.
Yeah, and you mentioned it competitive advantage. Oliver called it unique selling point, and I thought, because I was thinking small island, most of the entrepreneurial ideas you think have been exhausted. Everyone is doing something. Do you think there's a lot of room still left for new innovative ideas on the island that are maybe not related to the environment, wind, but do you think that's possible based on the resources we have?
Yeah, absolutely. I think I got an insight into a new business idea today that I never thought was possible. And that tied into the digitization of the world's economy. So what I'm saying is that there are tremendous opportunities for new business with robotization, digitization, etc. So a new economy can be built on the backs of this one. So I think you have the grounding for it. But what is fundamental, what is even more fundamental, is that Aruba probably needs to take the steps that islands like Jamaica are doing. They have started teaching entrepreneurship in high schools to start to get people get into the mindset of entrepreneurship, not when they graduate. And when you start that young, then you develop new entrepreneurs. You develop people with amazing ideas. And there are amazing people here who can have amazing ideas to start a business. They probably haven't been born yet, or maybe just in elementary school. But there are great ideas that can be put to practice here.
And I'd like to add to that because the next question is for Oliver. So we know that Credits does have a program, I believe for APE, eigen baas, and I believe it has been translated. But the question came for you, Oliver, is how does Credits get paid for their efforts? Because you're busy with this, how do you get paid?
Well, our business model, because we have a business model as well, relies on, like similar financial institutions, on interest income. Now, that's our business model, but we are what makes us different again than the competition or everything that's out there is that we're a foundation. So we don't have, our aim is not to be super millionaires, to be millions in the profit line, et cetera, et cetera. Now, if that happens, what we tend to do is we take that money and our profits and we invest it back in our clients. And we invest it through education, coaching, and stuff like that. So we keep building our own client pool. We try to invest in them to give them better tools to be successful in the future. Again, by building better clients, by having better quality clients, better entrepreneurs, good entrepreneurs, our business model is able to grow on the backs of those good businesses. So we see ourselves as a partner in the community, it's an entrepreneurship community, and that's why we offer all these types of services. And that's one of the reasons too, because we spoke earlier regarding the interest rates that we're currently offering, what we call our overbruggingskrediet, our bridge loan, is again us showing that how we can adapt to the times and try to bring solutions that actually work for entrepreneurs, for business owners. So it's a fair, I would say it's a more fair relationship. There's always a cost to operation, and we have to manage that within our own daily operations. But in general, if you want to get a scope of how Credits is structured, we are an extremely efficient organization. We have invested significantly in IT, and that helps us a lot with being able to provide enough financing in a timely manner and to gain enough clientele in order to make our operations viable.
Yeah. Thank you for that, Oliver. And I also remembered in your presentation where you presenting the things that are needed for financing, and I thought of Bauke. Bauke, I saw some scary, his overview of cost and assets and all of that. You made it look very scary, Oliver, instead of sexy, because as we said, finance is something that's quite boring, but plays a very important role. And here's where the Faculty of Finance and Economics at the university plays a role. Bauke, can you just give me an indication, is it in FEF that you guys really pay attention to giving our students or the community or whoever registers a basic understanding of finance and the terms and everything? Because non-financials as myself, I just think, it looks scary. That I can imagine, it prevents me from understanding the important point of the sense of finance. But maybe, Bauke, you can say something about that quickly?
Sure. Yes, indeed. I'm lecturing in the field of accounting and finance at the Faculty for Accounting, Finance and Marketing. I was forgetting to say that, indeed. So we have students coming in, and they get a broad program the first year, and then they have to choose between accounting and finance and marketing. So especially for the accounting and finance students, they will get a very solid base on accounting matters and also financing matters. Also for the marketing students, a little bit less, of course, because they are majoring in marketing. But we have also a minor program where also of those are available for both set of students, so marketing and accounting and finance students, where they get as well entrepreneurship courses, for example, in a special minor program that we right now offering, International Sustainable Entrepreneurship. They get courses about finance, sustainable finance, and also about entrepreneurship. So there is a wide range of finance-related, accounting-relating, and entrepreneurship programs that we offer in the Faculty for Accounting and Finance. But of course, also in other faculties, like the faculty where Donald is lecturing.
Yeah. If I could just shout out to the FHTMS faculty, we teach business economics. I teach business economics in that faculty, and we will be touching on entrepreneurship. And there are plans by some of the other faculty members to teach entrepreneurship as a separate course. I'm not quite sure how far those plans are, but that has been talked about for several years, in fact. And so we may be introducing that pretty soon.
Because I do believe, and as Bauke said, a Center for Lifelong Learning, we try to enable growth within our community on different areas, and entrepreneurship is one of them. That's why we organized this series. We've come to the...
Sorry, if I can interrupt. Also in the MBA program, we teach a course called Entrepreneurial Finance. Yeah. So that's just for those who are planning to do the MBA, we teach a course on entrepreneurial finance as well.
Yeah. So we've come to the end of our presentation. Thank you, Donald. Thank you, Bauke. Thank you, Oliver, for sharing your expertise and knowledge on the sense or nonsense in finance. I hope that it made sense to you, because I think that's the most important thing, and that you would venture out after this on keep on fostering an entrepreneurial mindset and eventually starting or flourishing or building your business to the next level. Stay pending for information on the summer school. Summer this year looks a bit different, so we hope to come with something different for you. And I would just like to wish you a pleasant evening further, and look forward to seeing you at one of our CLL's online presentation. Thank you very much. Wishing you a pleasant night. Bye.
Thank you. Thank you. Bye.
Bye.